last week was in Bruges, Belgium, and in Normandy. While driving, I start to see something taking shape in the mist. Then it materializes in front of me, 1,200 years old. I've seen this landmark for many years in calendars and books, but now I'm there. As I enter the gate, I wonder about the people and the culture that lived there so many centuries before. As you walk up the hill, up those winding narrow roads, you see the beauty and the practicality of this marvelous place and the immenseness of it. Staring up at the high walls and the buildings themselves and the abbey, you begin to see the power and the influence that it had over the pilgrims that would walk toward it, covering the mud flats that separated this island from the rest of the country. Eventually, we reach the summit, and you see why this little island has been so strong. As Annie and I entered the church, Mass was going on. I think you'll enjoy what you hear. So do you think you know where I was today? If you do, let me know. Castles. While you're in Europe, I guess you have to see a few. This one was located in the middle of a city. It was high, large, and protected. A castle over a river. Well, that's unusual. This beautiful and interesting castle had 6 women that had control over it. And it started with the king's mistress, who was kicked out by the queen when the king died. All 6 women were major influences on the design and construction of the castle and the gardens. This amazing castle was large and was made for the king to be a hunting lodge. It had 440 rooms and 365 fireplaces, one for every day of the year. Throughout the building you can see the salamander, which was the symbol for this king. A major design was a dual winding staircases in the center. People could go up and down and never have to meet. They did have contemporary art, and that was a nice change of pace from looking at all the old. Philip Cogni is the first painter that used images developed by Google technology, using Google Earth and Google Street View to capture these images. So I make it to the top of the castle, and I look around and I think, the king spent so much time, energy, and money so that he could spend 3 weeks out of the year here on this property. I'm traveling by train, and almost every train station there's a piano there for creative musicians to play while waiting for their train. Here's one example right here. The Romans had a big influence on Europe and left much of their culture and life and architecture all to be discovered. Here was the remains of 2 amphitheaters, one that would hold 3,000 and the other that would hold 10,000. As an artist, I've never been one who's been interested in mosaics until I came here. Seeing the floors that they discovered all put together with the intricacy and the color have just amazed me. All these mosaics were discovered in and around the location where I'm standing. They've been well preserved, and just looking at the detail and colors make me really want to do it. No, not really. Next to the remains of the Roman site is this church dedicated to Mary. Again, I was captured by the mosaics, the colors, and the details. Looking at the art is like stepping into a time machine and seeing what life was really like during a different age. Art books and websites try to show you the art and the culture, but it only skims the surface. To really experience it, you need to stand a few feet from it. Step back 20 feet and get the whole encompassing form. You'll see the colors, the details, and you'll begin to understand the history of what the artists were trying to say. There was so much going on at this church that it's hard to even encompass. I did mention that this church was dedicated to Mary. This town is also known for its puppets. Here are a few friends I bumped into while wandering the streets today. Annie and I have been traveling this past few months by plane, boat, train, subway, car, and walking. Hopping on a boat is a nice way to slow down. Along the river, we could see the remains of the Roman walls that were built before the time of Christ next to new homes. After seeing so much ancient architecture, I was really excited to see this. And this was going to be the new Museum of Art when it's finished next year. I thought it was a spaceship out of Star Wars and that it had landed there. It was amazing. And then, going around the bend, up came this green building. They were pretty nice and a nice change of pace. One of our goals is to experience the people and cultures when we're able. This was Matthew and Alexandria, who we met at a small restaurant. We spent time at dinner talking about their country, politics, their government. The next day we met Jackie at the Metro. He was very friendly and enjoyable. When we got to the art museum, there was this huge sculpture in the middle of a plaza and the opera house next to it. But there was a problem. Everything was closed. The art museum, the Lumiere Brothers Film Museum, everything that we wanted to see was closed. Why? Because there was a national holiday. Almost everything was closed. Europeans are not like us in the United States. When they close down, they want to enjoy their holiday. I wandered the streets, and this is what I saw. Before you come to Europe, check to make sure you know when their holidays are. Is there anybody here? Anybody? Anybody? This week we covered a lot of ground. Do you have any idea where we might have been? There were 3 different locations.